Mr. President, dear friends, dear colleagues, before the European Union there are two main challenges. The war in Ukraine and the strengthening of the European economy and agriculture, which provide a real basis for development and prosperity. Russian aggression in Ukraine has dispelled the illusion of the European Union as an automatic permanent guarantee of peace in Europe, which was the fundamental goal of its establishment. European peace is now primarily threatened due to overlooking the fundamental lesson of history, which states, unpunished evil always returns. The West should have insisted on the decommunization of the former Soviet Union, just as it insisted on the denazification of Nazi Germany. This oversight has cost the lives of hundreds of thousands of Chechens, Georgians, and especially Ukrainians. Without NATO and especially the United States, today we would be probably fighting Russian tanks on Union territory. In the short term, NATO is therefore the only solution for the security of the Europe, of the European Union, but as soon as possible, European wing must become strong enough to successfully deter all threats in its wider neighborhood. Therefore, all EU member states should reach at least 2% of the GDP for defense and triple aid for Ukraine this year. The emergence of a new crisis, possible new crisis hotspot in the Pacific, and the consequent significantly reduced military presence of the United States in the Atlantic and in the Mediterranean, without rapid EU action could mean a catastrophe for European security. Second, there is broad consensus in the European Union on the gradual transition to a low-carbon society. However, this transition must be reasonable, which is currently, unfortunately, not the case. Modern civilization today relies on electricity. But a kilowatt hour costs 5 cents in China, 12 cents in the United States, and 20 cents in the European Union, which only emits less than 10% of CO2 into the atmosphere. Because energy is too expensive, European industry achieves competitiveness with lower investment in research and development and by relocating production. In the medium term, dear friends, this significantly jeopardizes the real basis of the European prosperity. However, we have gained a multitude of billionaires who have enriched themselves by trading CO2 credits. For the institutions of the European Union of the next mandate, and especially for the European People's Party as the central EU party, these are the two biggest challenges. To successfully address them, EU member states must above all close ranks, which means full focus on priorities without unnecessary disputes over less important issues. This applies even more to EU institutions. For internal cohesion, it must become self-evident that the way of our life must be determined by us who live here and not by those who come, as it is rightly stated in our manifesto. The European Union must finally take its external borders and the status of citizens of the EU member states completely seriously. So far, EU responses have been weak in many places because European civilization is also undermined from within, primarily by modern versions of cultural Marxism, which some extreme political parties have largely introduced as a quasi-mainstream of societal development. In essence, this is the decay of fundamental pillars of Western civilization, from the family to private property, free education, freedom of speech and democracy. The fundamental instrument of erosion of European democracy is the establishment of the rule of the unelected. Above all, the left wing of European politics has established a network of so-called non-governmental organizations which claim to be the voice of the people, but they are actually an extension of political organizations or lobbying interests, not all, but many of them. Well-founded and uncontrolled, as it otherwise the case for classical political parties. These networks and attempts to establish the rule of the unelected must be opposed, and we must return to the fundamental principle of democracy, which states the voice of the people is as much as the votes you get in free elections. The fate of the European Union depends on good response to both previously mentioned challenges, and the future of the European People's Party and other classical EU parties, and truly the future of the European democracy depends on the ability to limit and prevent the rule of the unelected. Thank you very much.